Welcome to my webinar, Managing Anger, Impulsivity, and Emotional Overwhelm. We start with a short overview about what you can expect today. So first of all, of course, I give you a small introduction, overview, which I do now, just that you get to know me as well, who I am with my background and stuff. Then we get into understanding your emotions and recognizing the causes and triggers, which is very important. And I give you some sort of guideline how to deal with these emotions. Then I give you an overview about the most common causes and scientific foundations as well, like what is exactly happening in the body when we feel these intense emotions. And I give you some practical solutions out of my personal experience and also my work. All right. So quickly about me. My name is Julia. I'm therapist for health promotion and health coach. I studied that in Germany some years ago, so that is also where I come from. I'm originally from quite in the middle of Germany. Meanwhile, I live in Stockholm since 6 years, and since 2 years, I'm self-employed and have my own company with health coaching, basically. I'm specialized in stress management and emotional well-being, so that is maybe also answers your questions why I talk about anger. But that is also because of my personal experience with it. I was also in sales for more than 10 years, so I know the corporate world very well, and also all the struggles and the potential triggers for anger in there. And talking about that, so just give you a quick insight about my own situation. So I was struggling for many, many years with being easily upset, being easily annoyed, and very impatient. So this is something that accompanied me throughout my entire life, and I thought this is quite normal. But there were some points which I did not found very normal, to be honest, and it was also embarrassing because I always cried. So I was that emotionally overwhelmed. It doesn't matter what emotional situation that was, if it was a happy situation or if it was an angry situation or upsetting situation. I cried out of anger, out of everything. So this is what always happened. And of course, when you're sitting in front of your boss, this is not really nice. So I had this was kind of my baseline, but then in addition, I had extremely intense outbursts of rage and anger with only two people. And that was my mom and my partner, whoever that was. It really didn't matter who that was. It was always my partner. So always these two type of people really managed to get so much under my skin that I, from one second to the other, snapped and was completely out of control. And sometimes really basically threw a tantrum. So, and this, I was very clear that this was not so normal. And I was trying to find my way out of it. And I was trying to investigate what the fuck is happening with me. And yeah, that brought me to two conclusions. So that is also why I say anger is not anger. You know, there are different layers of anger, there are different layers of emotions. And this is what I want to explore with you today. I asked myself, first of all, 6 very essential questions. What triggers me? Why is that triggering me? How do I react when I'm triggered? Why do I react like this? What do I want to change? And how can I change it? So I kind of reversed it. So I started with what do I want to change? Because of course you have one or other behavior, no matter if it's emotional overwhelm in general or in specifically anger. There is something you obviously want to change. So I assume you too, because otherwise you wouldn't be here today. So I wanted to change to overreact, to lose control. And I mean, I hurt myself with that even, I was uncontrollable. I was hitting walls sometimes. So I literally hurt myself, not only inside. So this is what I wanted to change. And then I was going through all these questions. So I observed and identified triggers, understood my needs and their origin, which is very important to know. And once you know that, you will already have a big step, and then you can work with it. And then you can see, okay, what are the ways I can go to, transform my reactions. And then in the end, of course, you also get a feeling of letting it go and learn how to communicate properly once you understood your needs and the causes behind it. All right. So talking about the first step, identifying your triggers. So this is just a recommendation from my side and what I did. Every time you are in an emotionally overwhelming situation or whatever is bothering you, look closely. I know very often, and I explain later why there is a difference. Sometimes we cannot really think in these situations. Sometimes, as I said, we just snap. So there is no way in that moment to think about and to observe what's actually happening. But there are situations, like I experienced as well, where you feel it coming, basically. There are signs that build up before you actually completely get angry. And no matter what, try to observe either in the moment or, if that's not possible, afterwards. Observe what's actually happening. What's happening in your body? What's happening in your brain? What are your thoughts? And write down, in best case, every time something like that happened, what were the triggers? What were your thoughts around it? Who were the people involved? What was the exact situation? What were the words, maybe even, that were triggering you? Because it can be that you come closer every time you do that. First, maybe it's just very blurry and you just feel anger. But then if you do that a couple of times, then you can identify, oh, it was actually a word, like exactly when this person said this word, it triggered me. Or as I said, it can be different things. So this way you can recognize patterns and identify better when it's happening, and predict also better when it's happening. And also you learn what to avoid, maybe. Then you question yourself, so why do I react like that? And that is when, the deeper investigation starts. Because you have to see it like that. Anger is the symptom and never the root cause. Behind anger, almost always, stands an unfulfilled need. And this is important. Understanding the origins. What is the need behind my anger or my frustration or whatever? So is it, frustration, for example? Then most commonly, this is a lack of control and competence. Are you sad or hurt? This can be that you have a need for connection, empathy, or validation. It's also very common, for example, in work settings, that you lack validation, appreciation. And that is why you get angry, maybe. Or is it anxiety and fear? Also very common, especially in relationships, I would say, like the fear losing someone, for example, very common. This reveals a need for security, safety, or predictability. Like if you want to know, for example, when you meet with someone and this person doesn't tell you the entire day and you get upset, this is predictability that is missing, which also gives you safety, of course. It makes you feel safe. Injustice, also very common, of course, a need for fairness, respect, and recognition, also very often in a work setting. So then we come a little bit deeper. So anger is not usually only one, not a one-way street, not only one reason. So there are different reasons why people get unnaturally angry or cannot handle their emotions. Of course, there are genetic predispositions. There is something like the warrior gene really existing, which makes people unnaturally aggressive. Hormonal imbalances can also be a cause of it, like high cortisol level. Okay, but high cortisol is also related to stress, by the way, or a thyroid dysfunction or a high testosterone level. ADHD and neurodivergence can also be a cause of it. So these are more the pathological reasons. Impaired impulse control and emotional regulation. So there is literally something wrongly wired in your brain. Or the more common reason is learned behavior, chronic stress, or unresolved emotions and trauma. Learned behavior is basically, I think a lot of us know that, especially the older generations, which I include myself as well. We usually grew up in families, also depending on the country, of course, where it was not really a thing to show your emotions, not even as a girl. It's even worse with men, of course, with boys. We all know that, they get raised not to show any emotions, to be strong and just to suck it up, basically. This is learned behavior because you learn not to process your emotions, not to feel your emotions, not to express your emotions. And maybe even, so this is something we learn how not to process emotions, first of all. But second is also if you got raised in a maybe violent household, or at least, let's say, a household where there were many fights, this is also something you learn when you grow up. You learn that this is the way how you handle difficult situations. This is the way how you fight. You raise your voice, you escalate. If your parents escalated in fights, this is probably something you have learned in your childhood. But that is also good news because you can unlearn that. But most people don't really know how. And it was the same with me. I did not know how to fight in a normal way. That was really interesting to me. I had no clue, even though it shouldn't be so hard, but I did not know how to do that. I just knew fighting and shouting and, these things. Chronic stress and unresolved emotions and trauma. This is something I would say is also, apart from learned behavior, the most common reasons. And this is why I look a little bit closer on those two. So here is the reaction important to find out, is it an unresolved emotion which gets stuck in your body basically and gets you stuck in a fight and flight mode, in a survival mode as well, the same than a trauma response. Trauma response is, of course, more intense, and you don't need to think about a trauma necessarily in a really extremely severe way, like raping or something, or wars. A trauma can also happen in a more subtle way, like constant emotional abuse or emotional neglect in your childhood can lead to a complex trauma, and you don't even know it. You don't even notice that this has caused a trauma. So this is also something you should look into, and you understand better the origin here, if it is maybe stress, just stress, or if it is really maybe a trauma or unresolved emotions, based on your reaction. Is the situation, like, let's say you have a very upsetting situation, and as I said before, is it like you feel it coming, you're still sort of in control, maybe you even suppress your anger, is it like that? Is it proportional to the trigger? then most likely it's a regular stress response. If the reaction is disproportionate to the situation, feels overwhelming and uncontrollable, that you literally get meltdowns or throw tantrums like a child, that might be an indicator that this most probably is deeper and lies in your childhood or in other traumatic events later in life, can also be, but it's very often in our childhood. Especially when you realize, when you observe what's happening and so on, and maybe some of you know that I had that too. When I threw a tantrum, like I was smashing doors and stuff, I was really behaving like when I was a child. And at some point I noticed that I was like, what's happening here? I even feel like a child, you know? Maybe because someone treated me in the same way I was treated as a child, and that was triggering. So this is always an indicator that you might need to take a deeper look here and investigate a bit deeper into your past, like what is happening, what has happened that caused that trigger. Because you have to see it this way. And Gabor Mate, maybe some of you know, also said that he's a well-known trauma specialist. An adult doesn't react their age; they react the age the wound was created, and that is really profound if you think about it, because this totally made sense to me. That I had to find out when the wound was created to understand my trigger, and once I did that, things really were resolved more or less on their own, to be honest. But let's say it's not a trauma response and it's just a stress response, like a normal stress reaction. You know, maybe you are already in chronic stress because stress builds up. So if you're not able to regulate yourself, if you're not able to to calm your nervous system and to have like this balance in your life, to get back on out of the stressful situation, also depending a lot on your own resilience. Like, how is your resilience? How good can you cope with stress in general? Then stress builds up. Like if your resilience is not high, if you can't cope with stress very well, if you don't have any tools to regulate your nervous system, then stress builds up. And maybe then there is an upsetting situation and you're anyway easy irritable, and then you snap. That can also happen. So you need to observe, as I said, and investigate. Is it maybe a stressful situation? A regular stressful situation, and is it maybe more intense because I already have a high stress level, you know? And this is very often the case. So those two, I would say, are mostly the case. And the good message is that both. I'm not saying like if it's a trauma response, of course, it's a good idea to dig deeper also with maybe a trauma therapist or something. So it's not a cure for that. But in any case, if you work with stress management here, it helps you a lot. And why is that the case? So now you maybe understand the connection and why I go to stress management here, because every like upsetting event is a stress event. It's seriously nothing else. Your body prepares for fight and flight. And this is what happens in your body. If you observe your bodily, your physical reactions, it's exactly the same that happens when you're super stressed, which is basically you are in survival mode. And it's very important to understand that our brain doesn't really make a difference. It's really not important if there is, in medieval times or whenever, if there is a threat, a physical threat, like let's say a dinosaur in front of you and wants to eat you, or if it's just maybe your inner critic that is talking to you. So your brain doesn't make a difference. It reacts the same way. Every time the stress hormones are released, every time our body tenses up, our heart rate is higher, our breathing is faster. And so all the physical mechanisms work in the same way. Our body prepares for a life-threatening situation. This is important to understand. And with anger, it's the same way. You have a trigger, and then it goes directly to your amygdala, which is basically the alarm system of your brain. It sends signals to your adrenal glands, release the stress hormones. So before you even know it, you're already in stress. And based on the physical reactions, your brain interprets the feeling behind it. So let's say you tensed up, your heart rate is high, and sweaty hands, dilated eyes. Then your brain interprets based on the experiences. Okay, this is a threat. This is anger, for example, or happiness or whatever. So based on the physical reactions. So the feelings behind it is basically an interpretation of your brain interpreting the physical reactions, just to understand what's happening in your body. So, and that is the reason why stress management really helps here, because stress management also works with emotional regulation. Mindfulness, for example. Mindfulness is the most powerful tool in stress management because it basically transforms your brain's structures. It really does. There is something called neuroplasticity, is the ability of the brain to change. And this is a good news. I give you an example. It is scientifically proven if you practice mindfulness over 6 weeks every day, just 10 minutes, it transforms your brain structures and the gray matter and helps you to be better emotionally regulated. This is very interesting. So that is why it's really helping to work with that. And of course, in conclusion, it releases stress, relieves stress. It lowers the cortisol levels, of course, because everything works together. And as I said, the emotional regulation is also better. So to give you some examples and practical exercises for that, most of them, these techniques are actually based on mindfulness. So I do not explain mindfulness now because I think nowadays everyone has heard of it or has an idea what it is. And you can practice mindfulness, as I said, really just a few minutes per day. It already helps. Either if you brush your teeth or you do a meditation or whatever is mindful, just be in the moment. So we have this breathing techniques. The breath is also a very powerful tool because all these physical reactions in your body when a stress event starts are very automatically. It's an automated process. The only thing in this process we actively can control is our breath. And that is why breathing always helps. It's the fastest way to regulate your nervous system, to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the vagus nerve in this system, and lower cortisol levels. There is a breathing technique which is specifically for relieving stress, which is the 478 breathe techniques. It's basically inhale 4 seconds, hold 7 seconds, and exhale 8 seconds. So this is a direct reset button. Then we have a body scan meditation, which is a mindfulness meditation. It just means you focus on different body parts. It's usually a guided meditation, or you can do it on your own as well. But I find it always easier to have a guided meditation. Just search on Spotify for body scan. So you practice mindfulness in this meditation. I already said why this is good. So this also helps you also to connect better with your body, because when we are upset, we disconnect from our body. So it is important to connect both again. and to feel, to focus on the bodily sensations, because that immediately snaps us out of an unpleasant emotion. The stop technique is for acute stress situations. So in case it is not trauma-induced, so that you snap and are completely out of control, this is a very good technique in stressful situations if you want to come down quickly. So it is basically S is stop whatever you do. Take a deep breath, or a few in best case. Then O, observe. Observe what's happening. This is the mindful part. And I mean everything. Observe the situation, what is happening, why is this happening? Observe your physical sensations, what's happening in my body, my heart, my breathing, my temperature. But also tell your mind actively, okay, I'm sitting, let's say, in a car. I'm sitting in a car. I'm basically safe. So you have to tell your brain you're safe, because, as I said, it doesn't make a difference. It thinks your life is threatened. So tell yourself actively, okay, I'm sitting on a chair, I'm here, I have a roof over my head, I'm safe. My life is not threatened. That already helps also a lot. And then P is proceed. Then you have to choose. You can choose, do I want to stay upset, which is not good for me because it makes me feel bad as well, or do I want to proceed in a calm way? So this is short form and a good technique. I used it a lot, to be honest. So gratitude journal is not directly connected to that, but of course it helps a lot in terms of changing your neural patterns. And maybe not, because we all know that, if we are triggered by something easily, we pay attention to it, and then we notice it much easier, and suddenly we see triggers everywhere. So this helps to change your neural patterns. Just, write down whatever is on your mind. It helps also with processing emotions in general. Write down your emotions, what you feel, or, just observing. Or you can, a common practice you might already know, just like 3 positive moments. You write down in the evening 3 positive things that happened during the day, for example, just to shift your focus a little bit. That helps as well. All right, so now we're at the end. I hope that was helpful. Thank you very much. I don't think there were any disturbances, at least I didn't notice anything. What I can offer you now, because I also work with these things with my clients, I accompany them, I make a plan for them. So I offer a 30 minutes free investigation call, analyzing talk, just to see where you are, like what could it be that triggers you, like what could be the causes, and I give you recommendations how to proceed further. So this is what I can offer you. It's non-binding, and it's of course free of charge. If you are interested, just scan this code, then you can book a meeting with me directly, or you can of course take this information and try it on your own, which is totally possible. It's just sometimes struggle people with, consistency, and they need some sort of commitment. They need some other to actually stay on track. And this is what usually a coach is for. And to dive deeper into patterns and, helping finding out what the causes are. This is what I can do. All right. So time's up. And thank you for staying with me. Now you can ask some questions if you want. You can also contact me in the Meetup app, of course, if you have further questions or anything, or want to book a meeting. Totally fine.